I am a 28-year-old woman with a twin brother. Growing up, my twin brother and I experienced very different treatment from our parents. For some reason, my parents seemed genuinely convinced that my brother was destined for greatness, while I was labeled the black sheep simply because I was more interested in playing sports or making new friends than studying. They constantly compared us, which was demoralizing and hurt my self-esteem from childhood. As a kid, I had to watch my brother have extravagant birthday parties with his friends while I was treated as an afterthought. He often had sleepovers with his friends, while I wasn't even allowed to invite my own girlfriends over. Honestly, I hated every minute of my childhood. The only person in the family who seemed to care about me was my grandmother. Whenever she visited, she always brought me my favorite chocolates and sometimes slipped me a little money to cheer me up. As the years went by, this blatant favoritism toward my twin brother gradually turned into direct emotional abuse toward me. My parents openly mocked my grades and belittled my hobbies. It felt like no matter how hard I tried, I could never meet their expectations of being the perfect child. Even though I excelled at sports, they forbade me from participating in extracurricular activities because they wanted me to focus only on academics, just like my brother. It was frustrating, and I felt powerless as a child. Later, in my sophomore year, I was punished again. This time, my crime was having Snapchat on my phone. I hadn't done anything wrong at all. Just like any other teenager my age, I downloaded the app to stay connected with my friends. But according to my parents, this was a massive betrayal and a breach of trust. They became furious, threw all my belongings around my room, then removed the door from its hinges, telling me I would have no privacy as long as I lived under their roof. Watching my parents mistreat me this way, my twin brother, instead of supporting me, made my life even worse. The toxic environment created by my parents' unfair actions allowed him to exploit the situation to his advantage. He developed a habit of lying about me, falsely accusing me of things I never did so that he could get away with his own misdeeds. If he stole something, he easily shifted the blame onto me, and our parents, already inclined to believe the worst about me, would promptly accept his lies. He belittled me in front of my friends at school and mocked my appearance. Despite all that, I still had a wide circle of friends because I was approachable and open to making connections. My brother, however, struggled socially and began to resent the fact that I could talk to people easily, while he, being introverted, felt uncomfortable. This envy reached a breaking point during our 14th birthday party, when none of his friends showed up. I don't know why they did that to him, but in stark contrast, my friends took me out for ice cream, and I had a wonderful day overall. This enraged my brother, leading him to seek revenge even more aggressively. My brother began spreading false rumors at school, claiming that I was physically abusing him at home. Since our parents loved him more, he escalated things in a disturbing way, fabricating evidence. He would intentionally punch himself, inflicting injuries like a black eye or a bruised shoulder. The next day, he would confidently walk into school showing off the self-inflicted injuries as proof of my supposed violence. When our parents questioned him about the injuries, he would lie, saying they were from innocent activities like playing soccer with friends. The lies about his so-called black eye began to spread, and people started believing his distorted version of events. It didn't take long before rumors circulated, and even my own friends started looking at me with suspicion. At first, I noticed subtle changes. Friends who used to chat with me in the hallway suddenly distanced themselves. Invitations to group hangouts became less frequent. It was as if a switch had been flipped, and people hesitated to associate with a supposedly spoiled girl accused of violence. One day, I gathered the courage to ask my ex-best friend why things had changed between us. She opened up and told me how my twin brother had been spreading rumors about me. She revealed the detailed lies he had told everyone, accusing me of things I would never even dream of doing. I was shocked to hear her words. The feeling was a mix of disbelief and betrayal, like the ground beneath me had collapsed. My own brother, someone I grew up with, was spreading lies about me, accusing me of things I'd never imagined doing. It was a betrayal that cut deeply, leaving me with a knot in my stomach and a heavy heart. The next day, I confronted my brother at school, demanding he stop lying about me. But he just smiled and told me I deserved to rot alone. I was speechless, because his lies and behavior were starting to truly frighten me. I wanted to talk to my parents, but I was afraid they would believe him over me. The isolation hurt. I had always been open to making friends, but it felt like the lies fueled by my brother's jealousy were destroying the connections I had built over the years. Even teachers began to hear the rumors. It was a surreal experience, as if I were living in an alternate reality where my true self was obscured by the malicious story crafted by my own twin brother. The terrible rumor quickly reached the ears of the principal, and then my worst nightmare became reality. The principal immediately called me and my brother into his office, along with our parents, to discuss these supposed rumors. I sat there with my heart racing as the principal demanded the truth. I hoped my brother would finally confess, but instead, he doubled down on the lies. He simply told the principal that yes, the rumors were true, portraying me as a bully who attacked him whenever our parents weren't around. I couldn't believe it. Shock washed over me as my brother continued spinning this distorted story, claiming I was angry at him for receiving more love from our parents. It was all a lie, but he clung to it like glue. My mother began crying while listening to his story, holding him like he was some kind of hero. My father tried to comfort him, telling my brother he was brave for speaking out and promising he'd do everything to protect him. After that day, I tried to defend myself, begging the principal to believe me that it was all fabricated. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of accusations, desperately trying to swim to the surface, but my brother kept pushing me down with his persistence. He insisted I was this angry, violent person who took out my frustrations on him daily. My mother's tears kept flowing as she clutched my brother, casting accusing glances at me. It was like fighting against a solid wall of belief in his made-up story. The principal scolded me harshly, saying the school did not tolerate bullying and that my actions were grounds for suspension. I pleaded with him not to suspend me, tears streaming down my face, desperately begging him to reconsider. But he shook his head, saying he couldn't overlook it. He told me I would be suspended for 10 days so others would see it as an example never to bully anyone. That hit me hard, and I cried even more, practically begging him to believe I hadn't done anything to my brother. But the decision was final. My parents, angry and embarrassed by the whole situation, dragged me out of the principal's office. I didn't want to leave, I wanted to keep arguing, to make them understand, but they refused to listen. When we got home, things took an even darker turn. I was shocked, confused, and had no idea what was happening when my father began packing my things. My mother asked him what he was doing, but he just shouted that he couldn't let me live in the same house as my brother. I was crying, practically on my knees, begging my brother to tell them the truth, but he remained cold and unmoved by my emotions. My father kept packing my belongings and then threw the suitcase into the living room. I clung to his legs, still begging him not to kick me out. It felt like a nightmare unfolding. He told me that a bully like me didn't deserve to live in his house, and that he would call his mother, my grandmother, to come pick me up if she wanted to. It was as if the whole world had collapsed beneath me. I stood there in shock, surrounded by my scattered belongings, expelled from my own home. Eventually, my grandmother arrived. She gathered all my things, helped me put them in the car, and guided me into the passenger seat. She made sure I had my seatbelt on before walking toward my parents' door. She rang the doorbell, and when my father opened the door, she began yelling at him for treating me that way. With firm determination, she warned him that if he ever approached me or tried to contact me again, she wouldn't hesitate to involve the police or child protective services, because what he had done to a child like me could land him in prison. My mother tried to shift the blame, saying it was all my fault, but my grandmother wouldn't accept it. She stood her ground, defending me, emphasizing that I was just a child who didn't deserve to be treated so cruelly. It was the first time in my life that I truly saw how powerful my grandmother was. She didn't bow to my parents, and unlike them, she trusted me. Eventually, we left, leaving behind the only home I had ever known. I can't even begin to describe the indescribable pain I felt at that moment. I remember only crying in bed, refusing to eat despite my grandmother's insistence. I told her what my brother had done, and she was shocked too. She assured me that she believed my version of the story, and I was relieved to finally have at least one person on my side. When the 10-day suspension ended, the thought of returning to school felt like walking back into a lion's den. Entering the familiar hallways, the faces of my classmates spoke volumes: judgment, whispers, suspicious stares. The weight of the false accusations still hung in the air. Meanwhile, my brother completely ignored me and acted as if I didn't exist. He had become friends with some people who believed his version of events and saw him as the victim of my supposed attacks. No matter how many times I tried to tell my side of the story, it fell on deaf ears. I had become an outcast, branded with an unfair label that clung to me like a shadow. No matter where I went, the classroom, the cafeteria, the hallways, the eyes that met mine were full of disdain and suspicion. I became a loner. I kept my head down, attended all my classes, ate lunch alone in the cafeteria, and went straight home afterward. I had no friends, and it felt like practically no one wanted me around. Through it all, my parents never called to check on how I was doing. My grandmother constantly reminded me that none of it was my fault and that life would eventually get better. I graduated high school with good grades and was eager to start college, hoping for a better life. It was only when I went to college that I experienced what true freedom felt like. No one was looking over my shoulder, no one was comparing my grades, and no one was trying to compete with me. I met new people and made friends with individuals who shared similar interests. Despite the emotional and physical scars I carried from my family and classmates, I focused on leaving everything behind and making the most of this college experience. During this time, I discovered my talent for content writing. I had always wanted to be a writer, but I wasn't sure if it could be sustainable in the long term. So, I decided to set aside my dream for a while. Still, to earn some extra money, I began freelance writing. I signed up on several freelancing platforms, which helped me land projects from important clients. That's how I gradually started to build a portfolio of my work. While in college, I maintained this side hustle and never asked my parents for a single cent. When I graduated, instead of pursuing a corporate job, I realized I could make content writing my full-time career. I was doing really well thanks to the many clients and long-term professional relationships I had built, which allowed me to participate in multiple projects. Having a legitimate freelance career not only made me financially independent but also gave me the freedom to travel the world as a digital nomad. Traveling helped me heal from my past, even though it definitely wasn't easy. I saved as much as I could and took a chance on myself. Over the years, I saw much of the world, and there's still so much more I want to see. The only person I truly considered family through all of this was my grandmother, and I absolutely adored her. She was sad when I moved away but understood that I needed to be independent. Despite my busy schedule, I always made sure to be there for her whenever I could. I visited her on weekends, we shared meals together, or simply sat on the porch engaged in conversations that ranged from childhood memories to recent events. On weekends, I often spent entire afternoons helping her with household chores or accompanying her to the local park for a quiet walk. Recently, I finished one of the most important projects of my career. I can't mention the brand, but I was fortunate enough to write blogs and product descriptions for them. After completing the project, I asked the team I had worked with to leave positive reviews on my freelancing profiles, which they gladly did. I took screenshots of some of these reviews and posted them on Instagram, knowing that working with this brand was a huge milestone. As expected, many other content writers congratulated me on my professional success and even reposted my story to help spread the news. That's how I began receiving messages from strangers who also needed help with their websites. Some of my relatives noticed this too and reached out to congratulate me. Eventually, I was contacted by the director of my college. He reached out after seeing that I was doing so well and wanted me to return to campus for a seminar to talk to students about building a career in content writing. I was nervous because public speaking has never been my strength, but I decided to take the risk and agreed. Standing in front of eager faces, sharing my experiences and insights, I felt like my life had come full circle. In my speech, I talked about the difficulties I had faced and how hard I worked to support myself despite all the tough days. It was a genuinely rewarding experience to empower others and contribute to the growth of the writing community. Some of my clips started to go viral in Facebook groups, which was very comforting. Finally, I was beginning to be recognized for my hard work. Last week, I was invited to speak on a local news channel. It was a program about the benefits of content writing, and they invited me to share my journey and insights with viewers. I was a little nervous but also excited about the opportunity. During the program, I talked about my experiences, the importance of client reviews, and how a simple appreciation post could open doors to incredible opportunities. The chance to reach a wider audience and inspire more people in the field was both humbling and exciting. When the segment finally aired, I shared some of the clips on my Instagram as well because I was proud to have been invited to a TV program. That's when my relatives and cousins started realizing how well I was doing in my career. You see, because my parents never talked about me to anyone, they had no idea that I was working with popular brands and being invited to TV shows. The word spread quickly through my family. I think that TV interview finally reached my parents too, because just a few days later, I was working on another project with my phone on silent. When I finished my work, I checked my phone and, to my surprise, there were 6 missed calls from my mother. Honestly, I was shocked to see her name on my phone because it had been such a long time since she had called me. After all these years of silence, I couldn't understand why she was calling me. Hesitantly, I called back, and she answered immediately. I asked if everything was okay, and my mother began congratulating me. My father, probably sitting next to her, joined the conversation too. He started asking questions about my life and well-being, and I answered them without thinking too much. Nothing seemed unusual, until they began asking how much I was earning these days. I told them it wasn't their business, and my father replied that we were family, so I shouldn't be ashamed to tell them my income. I said I was doing fine financially. Hearing this, my mother started talking about how difficult their lives were now that they were retired. She said they had wanted to renovate the house for some time because it wasn't in the best condition, but they didn't have any savings. Then she added, "Your success gave us hope." After watching your TV interview today, we thought maybe you could help us by paying for the renovations. My father chimed in, after all, we are family. You shouldn't hesitate to share part of your earnings with us. I was stunned. Are you kidding me? Why are you asking me for money when you haven't even spoken to me in years? I didn't know what made them suddenly decide to contact me, but although I appreciated their congratulations, I had no intention of helping them in any way. When they realized I wasn't agreeing, my mother started saying I was being unpleasant and that I needed to support them as family. My father added that, as my parents, they deserved to be taken care of and that it was the least I could do. I was so angry that I wanted to teach them a real lesson. Suddenly, I had an idea. Instead of just arguing with them, I decided to set a condition that would be practically impossible for them to accept. I told my parents that I was willing to help them if and only if they agreed to my demands. Curious, my father asked what those demands were. Without hesitation, I laid them out. If they wanted my help, they would have to publicly admit, in front of our family and friends, that my brother had been the one behind the harmful rumors that ruined my reputation. I wanted them to humiliate my brother the same way they had humiliated me in front of everyone by believing his lies and manipulations. I wanted them to take responsibility for their actions and acknowledge the pain they had caused me. When they heard my impossible condition, my father started questioning the necessity of such an admission. My mother told me it was unnecessary and suggested we could have a private discussion without involving others. But I stood firm. This condition was non-negotiable, a prerequisite for any assistance I might offer in the future. As tensions rose, my father raised his voice, emphasizing his role as my parent, insisting that it was my duty to help my family in need. My mother, in a final effort, urged me to do the right thing and help them, highlighting all the years they had spent raising me. I couldn't help but laugh at the irony of their sudden appeal. I reminded them that they had expelled me and that it was my grandmother who had actually raised me, not them. They grew more agitated, but I told them firmly that if they wanted to re-establish contact with me and seek financial assistance, the truth needed to be acknowledged publicly, and my brother had to face the consequences of his actions. Since that conversation, my parents have been trying to call me endlessly, but I've been ignoring their calls. I'm beginning to regret even calling them back that day. I wonder now, would I really be in the wrong if I didn't help my parents at all? Update 1. It's been a hectic week since I last shared my story, and the support and encouragement I've received from everyone have been overwhelming. It's comforting to know I'm not alone right now. I'm glad everyone agrees that I shouldn't get involved with my parents or even consider helping them after what they put me through. The reason I gave them such a condition was because I knew it was practically impossible for them to fulfill it. I know they love my brother too much, and even if they've now discovered that everything was his lies, I knew they would never subject him to the same treatment they gave me. Today, my brother texted me in anger after my parents once again tried to contact me and I refused to answer their calls. This is what he wrote: "It's been a long time since I last saw you, and I can say every day without you in my life has been great. I heard our parents contacted you and you gave them some crazy ultimatum. They'll never do it, you know that, right? They clearly never loved you and will never do anything to hurt me. I admit I lied about you 15 years ago, but that was a long time ago. So stop being so selfish and try to move on. You're single and childless anyway, so why not just help by paying for the house renovations? Do the right thing and be a better daughter." Reading this message was like a knife to the chest. The audacity of dismissing the struggles I faced and the conditions I set spoke volumes about his lack of empathy. His attempt to guilt-trip me by emphasizing my single and childless status added another layer of insensitivity. His insinuation that I should prioritize his needs over my own well-being wasn't just offensive, it also highlighted how little he thought of me. Fueled by frustration and a strong desire for justice, I decided it was time to take control of the situation and reveal the truth that had been hidden for so long. I sat down to write a message to my parents and close relatives, sharing the painful details of my childhood and the unfair treatment I endured growing up in our household. In the message, I described the strict and oppressive environment under my parents' roof and how they treated me compared to my twin brother. I also revealed the malicious and completely false rumors my brother had spread about me at school, which had led to severe consequences and damaged my reputation. I wrote about how my parents had thrown me out on the street and that if it hadn't been for my grandmother, I might have ended up dead on the streets. At the end, I asked everyone to read a message my brother had recently sent me. I attached a screenshot where he openly admitted to lying about me. It was a clear confession that I hoped would expose the lies that had persisted for far too long. I sent the message just an hour ago, and I know everything will turn upside down as soon as my parents and my brother read it. I'll update soon on how my family reacts to my message. Update 2. It's been a month since my last update, and many things have happened during this time. As you can imagine, my family exploded after receiving the message. My parents faced heavy criticism from relatives who had previously been unaware of the extent of the favoritism and emotional abuse. Many family members reached out to me, saying they had no idea about any of it and apologized for not being there for me. My brother and my parents bombarded me with a series of text messages that became increasingly abusive and violent. That's when I decided to consult a lawyer, who sent them a cease and desist notice. It basically warned them not to contact me again and stated that if they did, they would face serious legal consequences. I think that must have scared them because they stopped contacting me. My grandmother believes I did the right thing by letting everyone know what had happened, and she supports me 100%. She's the only person who truly matters to me, so I'm happy to have her by my side. Update 3. It's been 2 months since my last update, and I'm happy to report that everything in my life is going well for now. Professionally, my content writing business is thriving. Invitations to speak at seminars and podcasts keep coming in, solidifying my position as a respected figure in my field. I remain as close to my grandmother as ever. I recently took a week off from work to spend quality time with her. She has been dedicating herself to gardening lately, and she taught me so much about different flowers and herbs in her garden. The moments I spent with her, whether sharing meals, engaging in heartfelt conversations, or simply enjoying each other's company, are some of my most cherished memories. My family has not contacted me since receiving the letter from my lawyer, and I'm glad they're staying away from me. On a personal level, I've started therapy, so I hope I can continue working on my healing. I think this will be my last update.
Reddit observers comment, "This story really shows the heavy impact that favoritism and lies can have within a family. Sometimes the very people who are supposed to protect us end up causing the most pain, but it's also inspiring to see someone turn pain into strength, build their own independence, and set clear boundaries. In the end, justice and peace came, even if through a painful path." If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next videos. See you next time.